Welcome to the journey where we talk to parents of athletes on how they got the kids to where they are. Today I'm here with John and Lisa Roberson. So this is a very special interview because you guys yourselves are former D1 athletes and you raised 7 D1 athletes. So I'm very excited. So let's get right into it. So my first question is, when did you first fall in love with basketball?
You want to answer that?
Since I was a volleyball player in and continued on in college, although when I was younger, I didn't really know which sport I was going to enjoy the most. So I proceeded with track and volleyball and basketball. So I played basketball in high school. I really enjoyed it. So I would say high school years would be the time that I actually fell in love with the game, basketball.
For me, I fell in love with basketball actually out in the country when I was living with my grandmother and all that kind of stuff. And the side of a tree and a milk crate. We cut the bottom of a milk crate out, and a Nerf basketball is how I got my start in basketball. And so my grandfather had me tack that on the side of a tree and all that kind of stuff. And I made my first hoop, and from that point on, I was like, you know what, I like this. So, yeah.
So tell me more about yourselves and your kids.
Yeah, you go first, because I can be kind of long-winded.
Well, I am the oldest of 2 in my family, my immediate family, and then we proceeded on to college, met my wonderful husband. We have 7 children. That's what I say, the rest is history. Once we both met in college, we hung out, we were good friends before we continued our relationship. So we've been around sports ever since. And
Repeat the question again.
Tell me more about yourselves and your kids.
So for me, you know, it all started, there's a long story, it's a long process. I know she don't want me to tell this story. Do you?
that's why I went short.
She went short. So we met the second day of college. And I'm gonna try to see if I can speed this story up. But a long story short, it was me, her, and one of our friends named Rodney. We all got together in music class, and we kind of hung out together and all that kind of stuff. And after a while, I started, you know, kind of liking her and all that kind of stuff. So I wrote her a note, you know, 'cause she used to sit behind us in class. And so I wrote a note to her, and I said, hey, gave it to her. And the note said, you're about to be my number 1. And she sent it back with a 0 after the 1. And I was like, nah. I don't think she understands. You about to be my number 1. So she added another 0, and I was like, I don't really think she understands what's going on. So I said, you're about to be my number 1, and you're about to have 10 of my kids. And I handed her the note. And she's like, you're crazy. I'm not having no kids. So I think we know who won out on that.
Now you know I went short.
And that's how we got together. I was a star basketball player, and she was a star volleyball player, and yeah, the rest is history. So
what did it look like for your kids in elementary school? Talk about grades and sports, all that.
We were kind of strict on the kids with their grades and all that kind of stuff, and it got to a point where they actually started monitoring themselves. But we were kind of strict on them because, you know, being former college athletes, we knew what would it take to play in college, all that kind of stuff. And being put on academic probation one time, that was no fun when you don't want to learn how to get your grades and when you can't play and all that kind of stuff. So we stressed that point to the kids that you got to get your grades. If you don't study, you're not going to play, and that's just the bottom line. So they all became really good students and all that kind of stuff, and so we're super proud of how they turned out. So.
And another thing, during elementary, I volunteered a lot at the schools to make sure, just kind of monitor, you know, as a mom would, and be involved and make sure they were on the right course. So
Correct.
That was a big thing that I focused on.
So everyone talks about trusting the process. What did it look like when you were starting your kids in sports?
Well, we started with upward basketball. John, again, traveled. He played professional overseas. So basically, I was home raising the kids once they got school age. Yeah, we started with upward basketball. That was like the thing to go to. Then we went on to the Davis Scott Y leagues that they were involved in, and progressed from there. great. I mean, the support at that time I thought was pretty good. And I still think it is to a point. So we were just fortunate enough to find the pathway.
Yeah, it was kind of interesting too because they traveled with me for like the first 7 years when I was playing overseas and stuff. So they were with me in Australia, Finland, and Sweden, and had a good time over there and all that kind of stuff. And so when Ashley was 7, we were in Sweden, and they started school late. So they started school at 7. So what happened was she had to repeat kindergarten twice, and I was like, the heck? Remember?
No.
Yeah, she did because she skipped the whole first grade. I mean, for first grade.
She came back and they put her right in first. Yeah.
No, what do we do? Because she started late at 7 years old.
Yeah, we went to
In
Swedish
Sweden.
school. Yeah.
Yeah, and they started late, and they put her in kindergarten.
Over there?
Yes.
Oh, over there
I was
because of
thinking-
English.
Yeah,
Yes.
I
I'm
thought-
sorry.
no,
I thought you.
I just said that.
Forgive me.
I just said that. Anyway,
I thought you were talking
so
about
yeah,
US.
so after that point, we came back to San Antonio, made San Antonio home base, and then for the last 5 years of my career, I went back and forth, traveling, and then finally retired in 2002. And yeah, when I saw the kids learning, I was like, okay, it's time to step in. So.
Would you consider yourselves helicopter parents?
Yes.
All over the place, you mean? Going here, going there. Yeah, this is gonna be like the end of like
30 years.
26 years of AAU, traveling around, and there's a 9-year gap between Aaliyah and Ariana in the first 5. So
Anthony.
yeah, that was, woo. It's been a journey. It's been a journey.
I want to correct that. There's 9 years between Anthony and Aaliyah.
Correct.
Yes,
Aaliyah,
yes.
Yeah.
Our second generation.
Yeah, we got 2 generations of kids. So the first 5 are between 28 and 36, and then Aaliyah and Ariana 18 and 20. So, yeah.
Did they play any other sports growing up?
Yeah, for me, it was. I wish I would have kept Aaliyah and Ariana on the same path with the younger ones because we made them do basketball. The boys played football, the girls did volleyball, and they all did track. So I wish I would have kept Ariana and Aaliyah in track because it would have helped them out a whole lot more as far as their development. But it was kind of funny because Aaliyah and Ariana, they started late, they developed late because with the first 5, we were always traveling to some college or, when Andre was in the league, to the NBA and all that kind of stuff. So we were always gone. So we never had time to like work with them and practice with them. So it was funny when they both started in 7th grade, and I got to tell her story. She's not gonna like this story, but Ariana was in the 7th grade playing at Rawlingson, and you know how parents are. You know your parents there, and they support you and all that kind of stuff, and they're in the stands. And so we're sitting there in the stands, and I'm sitting there watching her first game, and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be interesting because she's never played organized basketball, and this is about to be interesting. So they ran a 1-4 high at the high post, and they threw Ariana the ball right at the high post. She got it, and she just turned in, like slung it, and the ball hit like bam. And everyone was like, ooh. And I was like this with I had a hoodie on. I was like this. I was like, oh, Lord, this could not be my child.
She rebounded the ball.
Oh, my gosh. That was so funny. So I was like, we got a lot of work to do.
Well, she had an arm.
She did. She threw that mug hard. I was like, okay, that's not what you're supposed to do, baby. I'm like, okay. But yeah, that was very interesting. So.
Yeah, definitely helicopter parents for sure. We were everywhere.
Everywhere.
Pick up, drop off. Not only ours, others as well that needed rides. So
You gotta tell about the vehicles too. So we always had these vehicles.
names?
Yeah, we had the Ghost, the white Suburban. We had the purple dinosaur Barney.
We call it the Barney Mobile.
So we had a situation. No one really knows about our story as the reason why we're so connected and together. But there's a story behind our journey, and those vehicles travel from the East Coast to the West Coast. Talking about helicopter parents, we would, when Andre and was in Colorado, we would drive. At that time, what do we have? What would we drive?
Suburban?
No, we had the Brown Econo van.
Okay, we had that.
Yeah. We would drive from San Antonio to Colorado and back to go to school. We would go when Andre was in
Texas Tech,
Oklahoma.
Ashley.
Well, Ashley too, yeah. Ashley, Texas Tech, five hours away. We would go up and back in one day. I mean, it was just crazy. So we didn't have the funds and all that kind of stuff, and we were in a position where I made a really bad decision trusting a superstar athlete, and basically what it did is it got us in a position where we lost everything. And when I say we lost everything where we were in a position where we were homeless with 6 kids, and yeah, it was just a very, very bad time. But that kind of connected us together as a family unit. That's the reason why we're so close and all that kind of stuff. And you know, it kept us grounded in our journey and our path and all that kind of stuff. But we've had some very interesting times and moments, memories for sure. But those vehicles that we had, one, we had to keep them because, like I said, we had no money to do anything else. But those vehicles had almost 200,000 and 300,000 miles on them. So we were constantly on the road, just rolling. So
Helicopter parents.
Helicopter parents on 4 wheels. Yeah, so.
So were your kids naturally good when they started, or was it a process?
Well, I think that one story I told Ariana, you know, that that would let you know right there. No, it was, you know, the first 5, I would say it was very interesting because they were good, right? And I know Aaliyah and Ariana don't like it, but I tell them, I said, look, I'm telling you right now, your older siblings they would eat y'all's lunch because it was just a different mindset. But they were all naturally gifted. You could see that with the athleticism in the family and all that kind of stuff. And so the first 5, I think, because they started like in the 4th grade, like she said, with uppers basketball, it kind of gave them that coordination and all that kind of stuff as far as basketball, and they kind of grew into it. With Ariana and Aaliyah, it was like a deer in headlights, and it was like, you know, they had these new baby deer legs, and it's like, at one point I was like, are y'all even Robertsons? I'm like, what's going on?
They were in gyms. They would dribble basketball.
Yeah.
They would
but
go out on
they
the courts
just
and
they
play.
didn't have
the structure.
yeah,
and
that
training
order mentality, because like I said,
early.
I trained most of the kids. Well, I trained all the kids when they were younger. And so I gave them that professional mindset, the attitude and all that kind of stuff. And so Aaliyah and Ariana, like especially with Aaliyah, like if you look at Aaliyah is just a nice person. And it's like, you can't be nice. And it's just like, you know, this is basketball. So they all have their different like attitudes. They all have their different personalities. They all have the different skill sets and games. And so they always ask who's the best athlete. And I know who the best athlete is in a family. I'm just not going to say it because, like I said, they all have different.
We're very competitive.
Yeah,
mind you.
everybody's all
Very
competitive. And we're going up to California and everybody's going to be together and I don't want to hear no noise. So, yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. You said it the best. They're
all competitive.
They had their abilities, and they just were, as they grew older, and they were trained, and they were molded into, and they're also what they chose, what pathway they wanted to develop better in, or for the love of it. So, but yeah, I feel like we're gifted. They were.
When you started your kids in sports, did you have any specific goals in mind for them?
I did, and the goal was to get them to college because one, I knew that, you know, Ashley had her scholarship offer when she was a baby because we had Ashley when we were in college. So we were juniors in college, and we actually had both of them when we were in college. No, Amber was after college, after we got done playing. So the goal was to get them to college, to get them to a better path to where they wouldn't have to go out there working, you know, 9 to 5s and doing all those other kind of things. As far as for me, watching my parents struggle and all that kind of stuff, I wanted a different path for the kids. So college was our way of saying, hey, we don't have the money. And like I said, when you look at all the kids and what they've done as far as, Texas Tech, Texas, Colorado, West Virginia, Texas State, TCU now, and Duke. It's like, look, I don't have the money for to pay for that. So how we're gonna pay for that is you better get on that line and you about to learn what it is to get to college and all that kind of stuff. And so they all learned it, and that was our goal, to get them to college, and that way they can get out of once they graduate, they can start their life debt free and all that kind of stuff. That was the goal. So.
Yeah, I would have to say, yeah, we sacrificed a lot. He was the main breadwinner. I stayed at home until the older ones got to school age, and then I went into a daycare. So our goal was to make sure they didn't work during their time in our presence, whatever it may be. We sacrificed and made sure that they had and understood. So once they get to college, then they can figure out their path and come out, like you said, debt-free, and then build from there. So that was definitely a goal of ours that we wanted to accomplish.
When I looked at the whole situation, I mean, for me, it was like growing up on the east side of San Antonio. I went to Fox Tech my freshman year. Then I graduated from Southwest, and just growing up and just being in the hood, seeing all the poverty, seeing all the stuff around me, it was like, I wanted something different for myself. I wanted something different for the family. And so when I learned the acronym of what a job really meant, that's when things hit home for me. And I'm not sure if it was my grandmother or if it was somebody else that told me, but it was like, job, J-O-B, just over broke. And I was like, wow. I don't want to be just over broke, you know what I'm saying? Because for me, that's what a lot of people do. They go, 9 to 5s and live paycheck to paycheck. And it was like, you know what? We have to get out of this routine. So how do we get out of this routine? So through sports is how we wanted to do that, and we've accomplished that. So.
In elementary school, did your kids travel for sports at all?
I don't recall.
I don't think so.
Only local.
Yeah, I think it was just upper basketball and all that kind of stuff because in the YMCA, David Scott YMCA with the Spurs, Pizza Hut leagues and all that kind of stuff. So again, we didn't have the money for that. I was in a position where, like I said, when I said we lost everything, we lost everything. And so traveling, funds, we were just trying to find something to eat. It was at a tough point. It was a point where, as a man, there was a crossroads that I came to, and I had to make a serious change. And so for me, that kind of played a whole big part into why we do the things that we do, because I never want to go back to that state. When you talk about people being depressed, that's a mental health issues and all that kind of stuff. That stuff is real, and I don't play when it comes to people who talk about that kind of stuff or even play around with it. It's like that's a real issue. And so for me, going through that, I try to do whatever I can and want to stay away from that side, but also to make sure that my kids never enter that role and everything as well too. So, yeah, very tough times, but we made it through and we're here. So.
How often did your kids train in elementary school?
What was it? I think once a week.
Yeah.
And then they would have games on the weekend.
Yeah. It wasn't too much. It wasn't too much training until after I got done playing sport.
Just very surface stuff.
My career ended, and then what happened was Andre's AAU coach. He passed after practice one day. Actually had a heart attack, went into the hospital, and he never came out. And so now, like I said, I just retired, and we got this great little AAU team, and now all the parents are looking at me like, who's gonna coach them? I'm like, don't look at me. I said, I just retired. I'm still very competitive. My mouth is not kid friendly, and I'm like, they're not gonna be good for me. But it was actually those kids who actually saved me and got me out of that depression. I just put everything into those kids that I had, and They were doing things. They were doing things before a lot of people saw over here, as far as the whole Manu Ginobili, that we used to call it the Croatian crossover and all that kind of stuff. And just learning, at that time, the 2-foot pro hop and all that kind of stuff. It was just like a lot of people didn't understand what was going on. But I learned basketball back when I started playing international. I learned the basics again, and the basics is what actually allowed those European players to beat us in the Olympics, the World Cup games, and all that kind of stuff. And it was like, you learn this because I saw the game transitioning and changing a long time ago, back in '97. It's like I said, I was playing with, my teammate was Dirk Nowitzki, and I saw our coach, he taught me how to shoot, first of all. And when I learned that 2-finger shooting method, I taught it to the kids. And so when we would go around and play, these kids were beating, they were in the 8th grade beating high school varsity teams. And it was like I was telling them, I was like, look, learn the game, because until somebody jumps through that hoop and gets 2 points, it's always going to be about this little orange ball. And so for me, I was at a point where I was teaching them angles, and I was teaching them, just a lot of the little dirty inside tricks that I wish I would have taught Ariana and Aaliyah, because we probably would have beat y'all this year. I'll teach that a little later on. But it's just a lot of different things that we used to do to get these kids to the next level. And so for me, it was just like, I gotta hunker down and do what needs to be done. So we did it. Mm-hmm.
Were your kids forced to play any sports?
I saw the bad side of that, and I think Ray Caldwell speaking. He's told me. He says, John, you always leave room for your kids to grow. I said, I do that because I'm never going to ask or force my kids to go out there and train and do this and do that. If you want to do it, we're going to do it. If you want me to help you, I'm going to help you. But I saw kids where their parents were putting all this money into them through AAU, and you know how expensive AAU is. I know your parents do. And club volleyball is just insane. But putting all this money in, and it's just like one of the kids has just got to a point where like, I just don't want to do it anymore. And the parents were like, we spent all this money and you're gonna, and it was like, at that point, it was like, hey, you can't do that to the kids. If the kids don't want to do that and pursue that, for us, we're going to support them in whatever they want to do in the first place. So, but I'm never going to force a kid to do something that he doesn't want to do, because they're going to wind up resenting it and hating it. And that's what a lot of those kids I saw, especially over at Wagner, I saw them doing that. So, we never wanted to force them to do anything. So.
No, well, that was one thing we said. Once you make that choice, then we are behind you, and you will accomplish whatever you choose to do. But once you make that decision, that was the first thing. We didn't ever force them.
Yeah. So when you love it, you're going to do it regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Early on, did y'all care about winning and losing?
Yes. We were very competitive. Being athletes ourselves. So, yes, that was one thing we were always, it was within us. So naturally, because you wanted to win. You wanted to beat your brother. You wanted to beat your sister. You wanted to beat your parents.
I never let them beat me. I never. It's like,
yes, they beat
I'll fight you to the death.
It was intense, but it was, yeah. But yeah.
It's funny because they would always ask me, when I was playing overseas, Dad, did you ever lose a game? And I was like, I never lost. I'm like, you never lost? I've never lost a game in my life. And they say, what do you mean you never lost? I said, because I learned. Because if you look at losing and you don't learn anything, then you have lost. I said, because whenever I lose, like my teammates used to hate me overseas because, and I'll give you a funny story. I was in Germany when I was playing with, before I was playing with Dirk. We're playing and these guys would come in and they're coming in from work. And they're not really taking things serious. And we go out and we play teams, and these guys, we lose a game, and I'm pissed. I'm just like, we just lost, and you guys are sitting, want to go out and hang out and have a beer. And I'm just livid, right? And I found out these guys were like, hey, we're only getting paid $80 a week. I'm like, what? So for me, that's where that whole competitive side comes from, because it was like, I went to the manager. I said, hey, I said, you can't expect these guys to come in there and be serious, and you're paying these guys 80, but they're national players and stuff, $80 and $200 a week, and expect these guys to be serious. So for me, that's where my competitive edge comes from. I hate losing. I always play with my second team because for me, those are the guys that I felt that I had to rely on. I already knew what to expect from the first five, but it was always the second five that I had to make sure that was doing things. And so for me to have this competitive spirit is what I taught and put into my kids. And so, like I said, I wish Ali and Ariana, I had to train them a little bit more when when they were younger, because I think they would be a lot further along. But to see them on the path that they're on, it's fantastic. So they're doing good stuff and progressing at their own pace. But we're very competitive. So, and me and Mom.
Well, yeah. They had some good trainers too. Clarissa, who trained Ariel, Ashley. You helped with Ashley a lot too. And Amber with volleyball. She had a great organization that sponsored her. So yeah, they had quality trainers outside of.
You don't want to get into the dirt, do you? We get into the dirt. Remember Ashley's, what you call it? Oh my God.
Yeah, we're not going there.
You want to go there?
No.
Ooh, let's just say one time I had Ashley's them little group, and they were in the 8th grade, and we were playing Jetsons. We're not gonna say that. We were playing their top AAU team that were juniors and older girls, and we were in this little tournament at SAC, and they beat us by 15 points in the regular season, and then we wound up meeting them in the championship, and we beat them by 20 points in 8th grade, and so they go back to school the following year. They're freshmen, and they were just bragging and boasting how they beat the top AAU team, and their coach got livid. You don't be talking about your upperclassmen that way and this and that. You got to have respect and blah, 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 this and that. So the girl's like, no, coach. It was just a bad game we had and we want to play them again, blah, blah, this and that. And so they invited the coach to come watch us play again. I was like, you really don't want to do that. I said, you understand, these girls know professionals like basketball. I said, you girls don't. Even though you're upperclassmen, you don't know basketball. So they wound up scheduling this game, and we wound up beating them 79-32. That was funny. So it was crazy. Like I said, you would look at my little team, and you would think they were like a bunch of misfits, but they knew basketball. And same thing with Andre and his group. When I had those boys, when I had them in 8th grade, because I had them for 2 years, we were beating varsity teams from Dallas and Houston. Like, it was that crazy. I had this offense that I ran that I've tried to give to these high school coaches, but I guess they couldn't get the gist of what it was and all that kind of stuff. And but yeah, my first pass, you're playing 5 against 4, and there's nothing you can do about it. And so these kids, I taught them to learn how to shoot. Like I said, Dirk Nowitzki's our coach was Holger Geschwindler. He taught us how to shoot, and he taught me how to shoot when I was 10 years into my career. And I was like, dude, where were you at earlier? I needed you when I was younger, because that shooting method is a lot of what the NBA players utilize today. And so when I learned this, I was like, teach it to the kids. And man, we would play those teams from Houston and Dallas, and you already know about the parents and how they are in the stands and how rowdy they are. And we would beat those teams by 20 and 30 points. And it was crazy. So, yeah, I got off topic there, but I told you I'll talk, man. Let's stay on topic. Go ahead.
So if you could tell the parents of elementary school students one thing, what would it be?
Of elementary students?
Mm-hmm. Have fun. Let them have fun. Yes, don't drill. I would say let them have fun and grow to learn to love the sport, whichever one it may be. That's just because I know nowadays it's so different because they're hounding younger and younger and they're training younger and younger. But as they get older, I feel like it potentially can burn out for them, and they'll lose that love and that desire, which carries them on to the next level. So that's just my personal opinion.
That's true. My concern would be more so that a lot of these parents are stressing these kids' bodies, and they're still growing and developing, and I think they're putting too much stress on these kids' joints and their their muscles and all that kind of stuff. And so that's one reason why I didn't do a lot with my kids as far as weights and all that kind of stuff, because I knew they were going to grow to be tall. So I didn't want to stress them at that point. Anthony was probably the only one. It was funny because when he was a freshman at Wagner, he was like 5'1".
Very short.
And I was like, are you sure you my kid? I'm like, I said, all the rest of them are tall. So I used to literally go and get some water and sprinkle on his head like a little chia pet. And I'm like, man, we're going to see if we can get you to grow, man. But what happened was Anthony he graduated early, and we didn't realize that he graduated at 17. So he actually should have been.
Both of my boys, they both grew later on after high school.
Yeah, that was strange.
He grew about a foot.
Now they grew, I think Andre grew 5 inches in like 3 months, and then Anthony grew like 5 to 6 inches over the course I sent him to prep school after, to Impact out there in Vegas, prep school. So he left here like 5'11" and came back like 6'4", and I was just like, what the heck are they feeding you out there? Same thing with Andre, because Andre was like, at the end of his sophomore year, he was, Dad, my knees are hurting. And being around him every day, you don't think that he's growing and stuff. And so my back is hurting. Just go put some ice on it. And at the end of the summer, this dude looking me in the eye, and I'm just like, bro, you grew like 5 inches in like 3 months. So yeah. So that's what for me is just like, just take care of the kids' bodies and all that kind of stuff. And their mind, and don't kind of stress them and kind of put too much pressure on them, because they're still young, they're still developing, and that's a lot of pressure right now, especially with AAU and all this NIL and all of the, everything has become a money game now, as opposed to, kids just having fun and all that kind of stuff. So, but I get the competitive side too. So I'm a competitor.
Thank you for joining me on their journey. Stay tuned for the next episode where we talk about middle school.